A Mochi moment from Sadie, who writes, I'm not crying, you're crying. This is what I said during my first appointment with my physician at Mochi, because I didn't have to convince him I needed a GLP-1. He understood, and I felt supported, not judged. I came for the weight loss and stayed for the empathy. Thanks, Sadie. I'm Myra Ahmed, founder of Mochi Health. To find your Mochi moment, visit joinmochi.com.
Sadie is a Mochi member compensated for her story.
You are the most important relationship. Before you swipe, text, or worry about being too much, start with you. Grow Therapy helps you build self-worth, set boundaries, and show up as your full self. Whether it's your first time in therapy or your 50th, Grow makes it easier to find a therapist who fits you, not the other way around. They connect you with thousands of independent licensed therapists across the U.S., offering both virtual and in-person sessions, nights and weekends. You can search by what matters, like insurance, specialty, identity, or availability, and get started in as little as 2 days. And if something comes up, you can cancel up to 24 hours in advance at no cost. There are no subscriptions, no long-term commitments. You just pay per session. Grow helps you find therapy on your time. Whatever challenges you're facing, Grow Therapy is here to help. Grow accepts over 100 insurance plans, including Medicaid in some states. Sessions average about $21 with insurance, and some pay as little as $0 depending on their plan. Visit growtherapy.com/booknow to get started. That's growtherapy.com/booknow. growtherapy.com/booknow. Availability and coverage vary by state and insurance plan.
Welcome to Dr. Katina Talks, the podcast where we explore the journey to a more fulfilling, balanced, and meaningful life. I'm your host, Dr. Katina, and I'm here to share stories, insights, and strategies that inspire you to live life more authentically. In early 1996, my new husband and I arrived in England to begin what would become the next 8.5 years of our lives. It was his birthplace. They spoke English, but the words were pronounced slightly different. It was a familiar language, yet unfamiliar pronunciation. And I quickly realized that even when you understand the words, you're still learning a new way of living. Thanks to the United States Air Force, we were assigned to RAF Mildenhall. At the time, we were both active duty. Military, married to military, meant that we were both entitled to a housing allowance, and we were not going to let that benefit go to waste. We made the conscious decision to never live on a military base. Instead, we chose to live in the community, among the people. Now, let me tell you about a few of the houses where we lived. Our first house was a modern 2-story brick rental with a gravel driveway and a garage only big enough for what felt like a toy car. The doorways of the house were so small, we had to remove a window just to get our American-sized sofa into the living room. A year later, we moved directly across the street into what felt like a miniature estate. It had a grand entrance with a circular rug and a small table where I displayed fresh flowers. There were fireplaces in the formal living room, the dining room, and even the kitchen. But the heart of that house was the large farmhouse-style kitchen that opened into a glass conservatory overlooking a stunning English garden. Yes, I pronounced that correctly. In America, we say conservatory, but in England, they say conservatory. Our next house was an old converted flour mill along the river. Ducks would swim up to our back porch and remind us it was feeding time. This house was modern but had so much character. The shell of the flour mill was maintained, while the house inside was strategically placed on 3 open-plan floors, and each floor overlooked the river. That was one of my favorite houses. Our final home in England was one we built on a street called the Row. It overlooked beautiful Finlands, wide open marshland fields stretching beyond what your eyes could see. Up the street was a thatched-roof farmhouse, older than the United States itself. We visited the farmhouse at least once a week to buy fresh eggs. This final house in England was so special to me. It was the first house we owned. It was where I first learned to garden and landscape. My young neighbor Dan taught me. He knew all the Latin names for plants. I would ask questions and he would respond with clarity and patience. Under his guidance, I learned how to work the soil and understand seasons. I would dig in that backyard and uncover pieces of history, old coins, broken pottery, bits of glass from families who had buried their trash decades and maybe even centuries before us. In that home, I was a new wife and a new mother. We welcomed our only child there. I experienced heartache and triumph. I met friends and I lost friends. My faith was tested and my faith grew. And all of those houses had one thing in common. They were in England. And during that time, English doors still had skeleton keys. And guess what? I still have some of those keys on an old key ring. I also have keys from my first apartment in Camden, New Jersey, keys from houses we built, keys that no longer fit anything in my life. None of them work for the locks that I have now. Today, I have electronic locks on my properties. I can open a door while traveling in another country. I can grant access without touching a key. My life has grown, and so have the locks. Old keys will not open new doors. Now, people often ask me, where in the world do you get these stories from? Well, they grow out of lived experience, reflection, and the ordinary moments of life that carry deeper meaning. Sometimes they even begin at the breakfast table, like this one, when my husband had to remind me to stop writing the podcast in my head and come back to the conversation and to my coffee that was getting cold. And that brings me to my usual 5 life lessons. 1, sometimes the door is not the only entry point. When we moved into that first brick rental in England, our American sofa would not fit through the doorway. We tried different angles. We measured again. It still would not go through. So we removed a window. The door was not wrong. The sofa, it wasn't wrong. But access to that living room required us to be flexible. In life, when the key does not work, it is easy to assume the opportunity is closed. We may interpret resistance as rejection. We may decide that the door simply is not meant for us. But not every entry point looks like a door. There are seasons when the path you expected will not open. A role does not unfold the way you planned. A relationship does not progress in the direction you hoped. A carefully structured goal does not come to fruition. It may mean that you need to shift your approach, and sometimes it may mean protection. There have been doors in my own life that I desperately wanted to open, opportunities I thought were right, directions I believed made sense, and when the key would not turn, I felt frustration. With time, I have learned to thank God not only for the doors He opens, but for the ones He closes and locks. But in this particular case, I had a beautiful new sofa that needed to get into that house, and God provided an alternative way for it to happen. The doorway would not accommodate it, so the window was removed. A closed door is not always a rejection. Sometimes it simply means that the way you expected to enter is not the way access will happen. You may find yourself standing in front of something that feels closed. Before deciding if it is locked against you, consider whether there might be another way in, and also consider whether that closed door may be God's way of protecting you from something you cannot see. Growth is not about acquiring new keys. Sometimes It is about understanding that access does not always come through the front door. 2. What thrives in one season may not thrive in another. When I learned to garden in England, it was not just about planting flowers. My neighbor Dan understood something I did not. Every plant has a season. Soil conditions matter. Timing matters. Exposure matters. He would pronounce the Latin names the way they were meant to be said. And what stayed with me was not just the names. It was the lesson. You cannot push something to bloom before its season. And you cannot expect what grew well in one environment to automatically grow in another. The same is true of the traits we develop in life. If you grew up in an environment where stability was uncertain, relying on yourself may have become necessary. Independence was not about ego. It was how you stayed steady. If affirmation came through performance, achievement may have felt essential. So doing well was not about impressing anyone. It was how you felt secure. If emotional expression was dismissed or met with unpredictability, guarding your feelings may have made sense. Creating distance was not about being cold. It was how you protected yourself. These patterns were intelligent responses to real conditions. They helped you navigate what was in front of you. They opened doors. They reduced risk. They created structure. But conditions do change. In England, the soil was different. The light was different. The climate, it was different. I could not assume that what would grow easily somewhere else would grow the same way there. I had to observe the environment and adjust. Those skeleton keys in England were precise. If the ridges did not align exactly with the lock, the key would not turn. No amount of pressure would change that. You could stand there longer, you could jiggle it, you could push harder. It would not open. There are seasons in life when we respond to resistance with more force, more effort, more control, more of the same strategy. A key only works when it matches the lock in front of it. And the way you handled the last season may not serve you in this one. 4. You do not need every key forever. Now, I still have those old keys. Some from England, some from Camden, New Jersey, some from homes we built later. When I pick them up, they feel solid and heavy and real. At one point, each of those keys mattered. Each one opened something specific: a front door, a garage, a mailbox, a place where life was unfolding. But none of them open my doors today. If I stood at one of my current doors and tried those old keys one by one, I would spend time turning metal that no longer aligns with the lock. Not because the keys were flawed, and not because the door was wrong, but because the address has changed. The key that opened the apartment in Camden does not open the house on the row. The skeleton key from England does not open an electronic lock. The season changed. The address changed. The access changed. The key did not fail. It did exactly what it was meant to do. And sometimes growth is simply recognizing when something has done its job. You can honor the role it played without insisting that it still belongs in your present. 5. Access changes as you change. When I think about the progression from skeleton keys to electronic locks, what stands out is not the technology. It is the movement from one kind of door to another. In England, those heavy skeleton keys open thick wooden doors. Doors with history in them. Doors that had been turned by families long before we ever arrived. You had to stand there, insert the key, feel the resistance, and turn it fully to hear the lock release. That was the system for those doors in that season. Today, I have electronic locks. I can open a door from another country. I can grant access without carrying a ring of metal keys in my hand. And even now, I keep backup physical keys in lock boxes at each property. Not because I do not trust the electronic locks, but because access still matters and being prepared still matters. The skeleton keys belong to those English doors. They were cut for that time, that place, that structure. But I would not walk up to one of my current properties and attempt to force an antique key into a digital lock. There are seasons when you must stand at the door and turn the key yourself. There are seasons when you discover that the key you have does not fit and you must look for another way in, the way we did when we removed the window to get the sofa inside. There are doors that remain closed, not for lack of effort, but because they are not meant to open. Some locks exist to protect you from spaces that are not yours to enter. The keys that once worked were not wrong. They simply belonged to another address. So I will leave you with this. Pay attention to the keys you are still holding. Some of them mattered deeply. Some of them carried you through seasons you never want to relive. Some of them opened doors that shaped your life. But you may be standing at a different address now. If the key does not turn, you do not have to force it. And since you made it all the way to the end of this episode, I want to let you in on a little secret before it is publicly launched next month. I recently completed a new journal called Love by Dr. Katina. It is a guided space to examine how you love, how you receive love, and what you may still be carrying that no longer fits your life. If today's conversation stirred something in you, this guided journal book will help you sit with it. You can already find it on Amazon by searching Love by Dr. Katina. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye for now.
This podcast is supported by MIDI Health. Are you in midlife, feeling dismissed, unheard, or just plain tired of the old healthcare system? You're not alone. For too long, women's serious midlife health issues have been trivialized, ignored, and met with a just deal with it attitude. Many of us have been made to feel ashamed or forgotten. In fact, even today, 75% of women seeking care for menopause and perimenopause issues are left entirely untreated. But here's the powerful truth. It's time for a change. It's time for MIDI. MIDI is not just a healthcare provider. It's a women's telehealth clinic, founded and supported by world-class leaders in women's health. What sets MIDI apart? We are the only women's telehealth brand covered by major insurance companies, making high-quality expert care accessible and affordable. Our clinicians provide one-on-one, face-to-face consultations where they truly listen to your unique needs. We offer a full range of holistic, data-driven solutions, from hormonal therapies and weight loss protocols to lifestyle coaching and preventative health guidance. This isn't one-size-fits-all care. This is care uniquely tailored for you. At MIDI, you will join our patients who feel seen, heard, and prioritized. You will find that our mission is clear: to help all women thrive in midlife, giving them access to the health care they deserve. Because we believe midlife isn't the middle at all. It is the beginning of your second act. Ready to feel your best and write your second act script? Visit joinmidi.com today to book your personalized insurance-covered virtual visit. That's joinmidi.com. MIDI, the care women deserve.